Hello and welcome to the Blue Mantis webinar, Creating Predictable Operational Capabilities with Managed Services. We hope you find the next 50 minutes or so both educational and valuable as you consider leveraging MSP partnerships as part of your ongoing operational plans. It's important for organizations to obviously provide quality maintenance and services around their infrastructure, their IT infrastructure, their services, their data platforms, their security offerings, right? So those decisions are what we're going to talk about today. And we're going to look at it in terms of how you may leverage an MSP partnership model to drive additional value to the business in specific areas where you can see the value in real time, right? You have the ability to kind of understand the outcomes you're getting from those services and how they affect the overall plan that you're driving for the business. So joining me today, I have two experts in the field. I have David DiGenova, who operates as a solutions architect for us here at Blue Mantis. And I have Adam Caponegro, who is our Senior VP of Service Delivery and responsible for all managed services delivery to our clientele. Welcome, gentlemen, and I'll ask each of you to give a brief introduction on yourself. I will start with myself, and then I will hand it off to Adam. So my name is Jeff Smith. I'm the Senior Practice Director here at Blue Mantis. I'm responsible for our go-to-market strategy around managed services, working with clients and architecting managed services offerings that they can then take back to the business as part of their operational plans, and then handing it off to delivery so that they can deliver against all those commitments and outcomes that we are defining as part of our ongoing partnership. Adam, I'll hand it off to you.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. So my name is Adam Caponegro. I'm the SVP of Service Delivery at Blue Mantis. All the delivery teams roll up to me. That includes professional services, cloud service provider, and managed services. Looking forward to the discussion today, and I'll hand it off to Jeff, or Dave, rather.
Hello, everyone. My name is David DiGenova. I'm a senior solutions architect here in our managed services practice. So certainly working with clients on support strategy, challenges, putting together solutions based on areas that can help them maintain their environments for that high availability and the security that they need as well.
Great. Perfect, gentlemen. Thank you. So let's dive into a little bit about who Blue Mantis is. Blue Mantis is a security-first, cybersecurity oriented IT services provider. What does that really mean? What that means is that all of the services that we deliver to our customers follow cybersecurity regulations and compliance structures. We follow SOC 2 Type 2. We're accredited for that across all of our managed services offerings. It's important because that allows our customers to maintain their cybersecurity framework regulations and their compliance without worrying about the adoption of our services impacting those areas for them. We do think that as a critical service provider for our clients, this is really, really important. We do also provide a lot of other services to the market today. We are a full-fledged CSP, cloud solutions provider, professional services organization, and we have procurement services as well. So think of us as a fully rounded, very mature service provider. We've been doing this for about 35 years. And we have a large-scale customer environment with a lot of long-term customer relationships. So what I want to talk about is what we're defining as the IT operations plan or map. And I want to give a little bit of a reality check as to what we think this looks like today in the modern enterprise. So we look at this in terms of there being IT plan domains, and these domains follow this kind of a structure. There's a domain where you're operating, obviously your internal IT environment. You're managing to certain expectations and outcomes. You're trying to mitigate risks for the business, right? That could be cybersecurity risks or other types of risks. You need to evolve your services over time as the business changes and the requirements change. You need to innovate new services and new offerings based on strategic plans and roadmaps that align to the outcomes the business requires from their technology footprint. And you need to govern the entire program to certain levels of quality and economic realities and things of that nature. So if you think in terms of the program consisting of these 6 different domains, each of these domains has a different component that you have to be able to measure and manage to. And within each of these domains, there are discrete areas that are focus areas. So these focus areas, I'll give you an example here. I'll talk about 2 specific areas. Let's talk about the operate domain. So within the operate domain, most organizations have to operate a service desk that supports their user communities, manages their devices, ensures connectivity and productivity for the user community. They have to manage their data centers or their cloud environments, their network connectivity. That's a second area of focus within Operate. And they also have to manage their applications, data and service maps, right? So all of these 3 areas of focus within the Operate domain are where most IT organizations are spending a large amount of their time and money, to be honest with you. Another example is the mitigate domain. If you look at the mitigate domain, what are we really saying that IT plan has to do for you? The first thing it has to do is control, the impact of IT to the business in a negative way. So you have to look at outages. You have to look at business impact for certain types of technology changes, situations where some decisions made in IT may be impacting the ability for the business to continue operations, right? Or you have to work towards preventing those types of realities. But you're also talking about cybersecurity threats, right? So from a mitigation perspective, you're trying to prevent those threats from becoming impactful in the first place. So in looking at this particular structure, you have 6 domains. You've got 18 discrete areas of focus within those domains. But then you have to layer on what actually is the elements that are used to build and deliver this plan. And we think in terms of people, process, and technology, right? So now what you've done is you've taken these 6 domains and 18 discrete areas and turned them into 54 individual build or buy decisions. Do I build the team that does my service desk? Do I buy a service desk program from a partner? Do I build a team that handles my cybersecurity threats? Or do I buy a SOC service, right, from a partner? These are all individual decisions that you need to make in generating your total plan. Now, each of these decisions comes with a budget impact, right? So now you're really talking about 162 budget impact points in your plan. One of the things that our customers tell us is that the complexity of the plan, the complexity of options and how to deliver the plan to the business creates this massive amount of decision making that has to go on. And all of it is wrapped around a budget constraints, right? So as we're thinking about this, really think about this as 162 specific considerations that you need to make to build out this plan. Now, ultimately, what are you trying to do with this plan? You're trying to drive specific business outcomes. So, for example, if I'm going to invest in the ability for me to mitigate cybersecurity threats, what is the outcome that I can tell the business they get from that investment? Now, that's either something that you are committing to yourself. You can't outsource accountability, right? Or it's a capability you're getting from the service provider directly. And you're using that capability, say it's a service level agreement, response time, resolution time, things of that nature, and you're extending that back to the business as your IT plan's capability. So I want to pause here quickly and ask our panel a question. So Dave, you've been consulting with organizations for a lot of years around managed services, co-sourcing services from an IT operations perspective. from your viewpoint, what criteria should organizations be thinking about when they determine where they should leverage external service providers to gain the most value?
Yeah, sure, Jeff. So when I think about this, I think it's important for IT leaders to consider separating things into a few key areas. And number one is I think they have to look at the core IT kind of technology management, right? All the specific tasks and activities that are going to be required to support and maintain that current state environment for high availability, right? That's your run, the things that happen day to day, month to month, et cetera. The second area that I think they need to think about is IT related activities that are more aligned to their specific business, their specific industry, right? And the growth plans that they may have as an organization. Because these are two kind of distinct areas that they want to sort of focus in on. Because when I think about their core team, which we consistently hear from clients, is very lean staffed. It's really about their focus should be more on initiatives where they're leveraging technology to help the organizational grow, the organization evolve, right? To maintain that kind of competitive advantage in the market and in their space. That's where they best their team is best utilized because they know their industry best, and then they know technology. So how do we use that to our advantage? What they should then consider is aligning and maintain the maintenance and management, of that current state environment with a partner, an MSP, an MSSP, depending on the services we're talking about, because those are really core to the partner, right? That's what the partner does, right? They are core IT services from a capabilities perspective, and they're also those partners are built for scale, which can really not only be able to help them expand and also help them stay up to date because partners are also supporting the latest technologies because that's what they do. Again, IT services. So those are a couple of the areas where I look and as I talk to clients about trying to think about those things in those two kind of buckets.
Great insights, and thanks for the perspective. So you mentioned the run state, which was a great lead in for the next part of the conversation today. So what I want to do is take this map and I want to overlay what we would define as the traditional run state components of the plan, right? So as we've always thought about in the IT industry, about 70% of your funding, your budget goes towards operating what you have today, keeping the lights on, right? Maintaining those environments so that your user community can be productive, the business can thrive, and you can address things like risks, mitigating risks, right? So as we think about the map here, right, the run tasks kind of are in these four quadrants of the overall plan, right? So your operate obviously is very run specific. Managing to the operational outcomes is an extension of that. Mitigating risk associated with technology, with decisions around things like data retention and cybersecurity posture, obviously very much in the run structure. But the govern portion of the overall plan, in our belief, is also something that is very much in the run of IT operations today, right? So not only do you have to do the tactical things to operate the environment, you have to govern towards things like policies, costs, and risks associated with your industry or your specific business outcomes. So Adam, the next question is for you, and that's to think about it from this perspective. We've heard a lot over the last few years in the industry that things like cloud and AI are going to fundamentally change the cost model in IT, right? You today support around 150 clients comprising of about 45,000 end users and 20,000 infrastructure devices within your managed services team. What makes those partnerships for these daily operational requirements successful? And then I want to follow up a little bit and talk about the financial elements of this next.
Yeah, no, thank you, Jeff. Yeah, so a couple of things there to break down that you mentioned. You mentioned, some of the numbers, that we're supporting today, right? So when you're delivering at that scale, right, what makes it work, in my opinion, isn't heroics, it's being consistent. we put the client at the center of everything that we do, right? And the client needs to know a ticket gets handled the same way at 2 a.m. on a Sunday, for example, the same way as midday on a Tuesday. So the first ingredient is really being repeatable to that process, having a well-defined process backed by a skilled team and the right tooling. The second part of it, from my point of view, is the ability to flex. It's been my experience that operational demand has never necessarily been flat as you go out through the year. You get a migration or you go through an acquisition, there might be a security event or an outage or something to that effect. A good partner absorbs that surge without the client having to staff for that peak, right? That's an important way of operating for us. A third thing is we must be measured against the outcomes, not necessarily activity. We're not successful because we closed a lot of tickets, right? We're successful, because the client environment is stable, it's secure, the users are productive, right? And we're hitting the SLAs and SLOs that actually matter to their business.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that great insight. I do think it's an area where when customers are considering leveraging managed services partnerships as part of their overall plan, those are some of the areas that they're most concerned about, right? Is not just, hey, can you solve these issues, but can you do it in a way that actually improves the business productivity of the user community? Can you do it and improve the actual experience, right? So that the decision to enable that service through a partnership is seen as a positive aspect, right, of the overall plan against what was being done prior. And so it looks like progress, it looks like improvement, it looks like a better outcome than was being realized before. So let's shift the focus a little bit and talk a little bit more about economics of this type of a plan. So what I've done here is I've kind of highlighted 3 areas via the green triangles where there are distinct economic decisions and considerations that you need to make as part of this plan. And traditionally, organizations would think of economic decision making and outcomes as an internally managed and maintained function, right? So I might co-source or outsource portions of my run state to run the business, but I'm going to stay in control of how I measure the costs, measure the cost of the delivery of the services, the running of the services, et cetera. But we have certainly seen over the last few years, specifically with cloud as enabling technology, where financial operations is now much more a part of what you need to have in the plan. And a lot of traditional IT organizations struggle with the ability to control costs, right? So we in this business have certainly enabled financial operations within the IT organization as a service capability and outcome that you can achieve from the adoption of a managed services program. So Dave, question to you specifically in this area, right, is that when we're thinking about the types of services customers want or should adopt from us, how do we kind of build out that cost operating model? What kind of criteria do we provide to our customers in terms of how we help them manage costs while we're delivering these service outcomes?
Sure. Yeah, Jeff. So I think, when it comes to cost, and this is where clients might be, they're trying to flush out, am I going to do this potentially myself in-house? Am I going to use an MSP or a partner? And what are those things I need to consider? It's really where we're helping clients today is to truly understand that TCO, right? That total cost of ownership to support potentially certain areas of the business that we may be in discussion related to. And, this is important because, IT leaders, right, they're expected to provide a predictable budget back to the business, right? That they're going to need to not only support the current state environment, but it has to have some level of growth as well built in there, because they're seldomly going to get more money unless there's like a major growth thing or initiative that happens. So they've got to, this is pretty tight, and they've got to do this right when it comes to the budget to support this. So, we really help them try to really think this through, because if it's not thought out, they're definitely going to have gaps. And if those gaps become visible, they're going to impact overall company performance and potentially execution. So, a couple of areas that we want to just make sure that they're not overlooking when they're really thinking about what are the costs that I need to consider when I'm talking about supporting maybe XYZ. In license costs, you mentioned sort of that part of it from even as a cloud or et cetera. That's a big one, right? You don't want to have the software on a shelf kind of model. So licensing costs and then management and administration of that license of that platform, excuse me, to do whatever it may be doing for the environment, supporting the environment, providing visibility, identifying risk, right? There is management administration that has to happen on all those platforms, and that sometimes gets overlooked of what that really takes to do that, to make sure you're maximizing that investment that you made in XYZ technology. Another is avoiding kind of single-threaded coverage, right? So if you're going to build kind of things with coverage, you really have to look at this and really understand what's the general availability of IT need to be to the business. Are there specific advanced skill sets that I need? And are those going to be a challenge if those are single-threaded? So depth and across everything that you're leveraging in your environment is also another key area that clients need to consider. And I would say the last one is definitely on the SLA side, right? If you need to provide, and most do in today's day and age, need to provide some kind of an SLA back to the business. If the business is expecting you as IT to provide that, you're going to need to ensure that your support model has that depth and is properly mapped out, to minimize potential breaches that could occur and things that could cause any kind of impact to the organization.
Yeah, great points. One thing I would also add in there, and you sort of touched on it, but I wanted to flesh it out a little bit, is when a service provider is delivering you a service, that service is generally speaking going to have some sort of underlying enabling technology associated with it. So if you think of, say, email security as an example, right? Email security as a provisioned service from an MSP is generally going to use some technology provider, Mimecast, Proofpoint, or other, right? And the licensing associated with that technology stack in a traditional model is purchased by the customer, and to your point, purchased at a certain level. What happens if you have the company goes through a RIF, and now you don't need those 1,000 seats of license anymore, you need 800? Well, you've already committed to the 1,000, right? So in the MSP model, one of the important cost control levers that we have is to move those costs to a monthly consumption model. So we have the ability to adjust up and down the actual consumption of those costs to the specific business realities at the time. So that from our perspective, that gives you flexibility to understand that your costs are going to be sized and scaled based on the actual business scope versus a purchase you made 6 months ago at a certain time when the organization was at a certain size. So, Adam, a question to you specifically in this area around finances is, as an MSP, right, and delivering these partnership services to our customers, how do we help them with financial management and cost control overall in their IT operations?
Yep, good question. The clients that I speak with, it seems it's only gotten harder, not easier for them, to manage their way through this. I mean, with consumption-based services like hyperscalers and SaaS, costs are now dynamic and reoccurring in a way they just haven't been before, and they can get away from you very fast. A few ways that we help is, Dave's spot on. I mean, our visibility that we have with our FinOps discipline, showing clients where the spend goes, flagging out our resources, right-sizing opportunities they can't easily see themselves. We hit on license management too. That's a big one for us, making sure that our clients aren't paying for shelfware, and sitting on a tier that they don't necessarily need, and overspending in that capacity. Third is what I call burst absorption, right? So instead of, a client having to staff internally for, what could be the worst week of the year, they can leverage our shared model, right? And pay for the capability, not just the peak headcount in order to get through that time period, right? And Jeff, you mentioned, the net effect of having that level of predictability. I mean, clients can actually budget. They can reallocate savings for more, what you can call strategic work, or free up resources for people to work on projects that actually move the business forward.
Excellent. All excellent points. So we've covered off on kind of the traditional run state. We've talked about financials and cost control measures and levers that can be beneficial when leveraging a managed services partnership. I want to pivot now to one of their top interests and priorities now is cybersecurity, right? So in this same model, I've highlighted three areas specifically within the run state domains where cybersecurity comes into play. Obviously, we're talking a lot about mitigating risks, mitigating threats. We're talking about establishing appropriate policies for IT operations, for IT usage, policies that enable the business but protect the business at the same time, right? So these shouldn't be barriers to business productivity per se. They should be enablers of a secure and resilient organization that drive a net increase in productivity and outcomes, right? So as customers are looking at these specific cybersecurity areas, right, they again have these decisions to make. Do I build this internally with teams and tools and process? Do I outsource this or co-source this with a partnership? Maybe an organization that has been doing this for a number of years has specific talent and skills and tools that I can then get the benefit of instead of kind of starting from ground zero. In this space specifically, there's a lot of impact in business change, right? So as the organization is maybe looking to move into new markets, release new types of products, maybe get alignment with contracts that might be associated with the federal government or Department of Defense, right? All of these areas are going to generate a lot of potential change in their cybersecurity requirements. And that change may be more effectively done at an MSP level than an internal level, right? So you may be able to adopt a partnership that can enable you to move in those directions more quickly and more efficiently than you would if you had to do it with existing staff via training, skilling up, new tool implementations, et cetera, right? So back to the panel here with a couple of questions. So Dave, when you're engaging with clients who are looking to improve their overall cybersecurity posture and outcomes, what are the key factors that you believe they should be considering, and how do we address those as an MSSP in this case?
Yeah, there is certainly a lot to consider, and we have the security conversation. Where our goal, we're working with clients, is really try to help them, minimize the gaps that they may have, that span everything security. So, we start at the beginning with a baseline protection kind of perspective, right? Looking at user kind of activities and user kind of security things that you should have in place to start at that foundation of protecting the organization. And then we take that through, we sort of go through from a security journey perspective to more advanced kind of proactive and predictive security that spans the entire environment, as well as compliance requirements that they may have, because businesses have unique compliance things that we also can help them in those areas as well. Because the goal here is really to help build the right framework that works for them, right? And ensure that they don't have holes in that overall security architecture in today's day and age. And there's really, no single platform. And this is where, when it gets back to now to more the platforms and kind of the tooling and the things you might need for visibility and management, there's no single platform out there that's going to support the entire modern security requirements as an organization, right? What's important is you want to have a level of unifying them. And that's really at a SIM level is very important, right? So you want to have a platform that can unify and ingest data from a lot of different security platforms to give you full visibility, full control and management, right? And understanding the things that are happening within your organization. And this platform was also very important because, of course, it can drive automation, right, where it's available, provide observability. I think that's a real word, right? Observability to the analyst, right? So how they can manage the environment and best determine path forward, right, to resolve events as they occur. So, these things are all very important, and we have to really look at the holistic kind of view there. And we also understand, sort of, in my final kind of thought on this is, there's a lot of things that may be identified as requirements and then covered that the client might have to address. And we understand that, those cannot all be consumed at once. There's budget reasons, there's timing reasons, et cetera. And that's okay. What we always try to say is at least let's try to define, and you should be defining a roadmap, right? What does that look like from a phase perspective? Because the goal is to get there, right, as an organization. Certainly when you're responsible for security in the organization, and let's try to work together on how we can maybe map out some phases to get you where you need to be to feel comfortable with your security kind of posture.
Yeah, great. And I do think what's really important in what you were talking about there, right, is cybersecurity is a journey, and it's a journey that technically will never end, right? There's always going to be new threats. There's going to be new requirements. There's going to be new regulatory elements that you have to manage and maintain to new policies. All of these things it'll be a continuous kind of needs adjustment model that you have to make as an organization. And again, having more capabilities behind you in this space is critical. You're probably going to run into situations where platforms, tools, investments you've made are not going to make the cut anymore. They're not going to be able to provide you with the level of observability, to your point, Dave, right? Which is a great IT term that we love to throw out there. So having a partnership in this space that you can rely on, that you can go to, that can not just provide you the tactical security components of a cybersecurity program, but that also be an advisor, can help you understand where you need to go and how you can get there as your business realities change. So Adam, pivoting over to you, what do you think are the greatest benefits organizations get in building connective tissue between what some would argue are normally separate, outcome or responsibility sets between an IT program and a cybersecurity program?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, right now we're seeing a lot of value getting unlocked, right, from bringing those two closer together. I would say and comment on what you mentioned, Jeff, which is historically security and operation teams ran as separate silos, right? And different teams, different tools, different tickets, which can result into, not achieving the outcome that's desired. And it's that seam in between the two where critical things can fall through. The benefit of connecting the outcomes is speed and accountability, in my opinion. When a SOC detects something and there's a directed handoff straight into the operations workflow, I mean, same ITSM platform, same shared context, you take huge chunks out of the meantime to resolution, which is very important to us, very important to our clients. There's no re-explaining of the incident. There's no tickets sitting in queue waiting for someone to notice. We enable that by running both functions on a common tooling with aligned SLAs, shared success metrics. So both teams are measured against the same outcome instead of just their own slice of the operation. For the client, the connective tissue means the threat doesn't just get detected, it gets contained, it gets remediated fast, with one accountable partner instead of, two partners or two teams pointing the fingers at each other.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing more and more the consolidation of the overall accountability to the business across those two, what, as you mentioned, were traditionally fairly siloed functions, right? Because it's no longer the concern is no longer the fox and the hen house model, right? It's more about the outcome. What is the outcome I'm getting? If I can build a relationship that generates that level of outcome, ultimately that's what makes the total program successful. Great. So we've gone through quite a bit here. We've talked about the overall kind of operational plan, the domains and areas of focus, all the decision points you have around build or buy, how you're going to handle people, process, technology in that whole narrative, how MSPs can help you focus in all of the operational states, but also looking at things like financial management and cybersecurity posture and risk. So hopefully you found from that some areas where you think you can explore a managed services partnership that would be beneficial to the organization, and be able to evaluate those partners in more than just, can they close a ticket? Can they hit an SLA, right? And what is the ultimate outcome? What's the benefit? What's the customer experience? What's the business productivity outcome from the partnership that you establish with those providers, working collaboratively with your internal teams? We're going to pivot now and talk about some trends in the MSP market that we're seeing. And I'll just mention here that, Dave or Adam, if you have any comments or thoughts on any of these trends, feel free to jump in. So we are seeing this MSP evolution, and we just talked about this in the cybersecurity perspective, where MSP and MSSP now need to start to move into a singular operational model. Again, Adam mentioned quicker responsiveness, lower mean time to resolution, risk reduction, and clarity around operational responsibilities. So there isn't finger pointing, there's not issues or tickets or cases that fall through the gaps and sit there and create additional risk for the business. So this is definitely one of the trends we're seeing. We're also seeing a lot of AI-driven and automation trends in the business, as you would expect, right? It's one of the biggest topics, if not the biggest topic right now in the industry. Where we're seeing this being applied is primarily around things like alert correlation and noise reduction to reduce the overall workload of the IT organization and or your partners. By reducing the operational workload, you're going to improve outcomes, and you can potentially lower costs, right? Associated back to our financial conversation. But we're also seeing this start to come into predictive maintenance functions. So being able to automate things that traditionally might have taken more human responses, patching, firmware code management, preventive maintenance activities around things like capacity management and utilization management. And where we're really starting to see this take off is what I define as simple self-service fulfillment. So specifically in the service desk business, what does this really mean? What this means is the ability for AI to fully resolve user incidents and requests without the need to have a secondary human interaction to complete that request. And that's something we're seeing a lot of progress in today. There's a lot of interesting and very exciting ways that AI can be leveraged in this space. And it can certainly drive, again, faster resolutions, less business impact to user issues and events, and additional potential cost savings as well.
Yeah, and if I could just add there, Jeff, we all knew the AI topic was going to come up, right? And and that's all great points, and I agree. But I think, of course, for us, there's that balance of, like you said, AI doing certain automation and lower end tasks, but never taking away the requirements of technical expertise, security expertise. In our services, you're going to have the kind of SOC analyst that's going to be tied to your program. You're going to have a technical account manager tied to your program, because at the end of the day, people are still going to drive this and expertise on the technologies to help clients continue to evolve and again support that kind of environment. So yeah, AI has an absolute place, and we leverage that to drive efficiency down to our clients, but it does not certainly take away from the advanced technical touch points that are key.
Yeah.
Yeah,
go ahead, Adam.
No, I was just going to echo what Dave's saying. It's like, again, I mean, we put the client at the center of what we do, and AI certainly has a role with that and also influences it, right? So, having the client at the center in order to drive that experience is paramount to us. And just another area of focus for us as well too is in speaking with a lot of the clients, I think some of them are really struggling in order to figure out their own AI program. As we see across the market, a lot of operational budget being reallocated to fund some type of AI program within a company, right? So, leveraging our advisory services, where we're guiding clients through a journey, is a capability that we have as well too.
Yeah, and what I would just add in this area, and obviously we're spending a lot of time on AI because it is the biggest topic right now in the industry, is to Dave's point and Adam's point, it's a balance, right? You're never going to completely disintermediate humans in IT operations. So we really look at it as AI enabled but human led, right? You still want humans making the core decisions, providing the context, understanding of user experience, right? Things of that nature. A couple of other trends to touch on, and I know we're running a little short on time, so we'll move this forward. Zero trust and identity-centric security is becoming a big capability within the MSP and MSSP space. Platform enhancements, new feature capabilities, vendors who now have built a lot of these kind of security elements into their core technology stacks has allowed MSPs to really start to drive additional risk reduction and security posture improvements all the way out through the workforce, regardless of how distributed the workforce is, regardless of the number and sprawl associated with SaaS platforms that are being consumed by the business. Having that centralized kind of zero trust architecture has become more and more a requirement. Couple more trends. Cloud native management. Obviously, when operating inside the hyperscalers, there are some consistencies in IT operations to traditional data centers, but there's some differences. There's some things that can be done within that service delivery architecture that are a little bit more of the provisioning and pipeline management type of activities that requires additional operational capabilities from a tooling perspective, but also from a skill perspective. So we're starting to see a little bit of a blend of traditional IT operations for cloud environments and DevOps or development services within that same architecture, and those things being blended into kind of a single MSP experience. Client visibility for us is something that is critically important. I think you've heard Adam and Dave talk about the client experience, put the client at the center, right, of the service capability and delivery. And where this really comes in is in a completely transparent and shared service delivery model. The way we approach this as a provider is we provide access to our platforms and tools. We provide portals and reports and dashboards for our customers to consume directly, without necessarily having to get information from us that they may look at as, I don't want to say biased, but maybe adjusted or modified to make us look better. They can audit, validate, and quantify for themselves the value they're getting from the services. And we think that's critically important to a long-term trusted relationship and collaborative business outcomes. And then lastly, compliance. So generally speaking, most organizations have thought about, call it GRC, governance, risk, and compliance, as a point-in-time need to pass an audit or to enable a business outcome. Maybe it's a new market. We talked about that a little bit earlier. Maybe it's a new regulatory compliance framework that you're looking to align with. In those cases, they think of compliance as, I need to do a quick compliance check. I need to do a bunch of work to get me past this event. And then I'm going to do it again next year when the audit comes back around. We're kind of flipping that thought on its head to say compliance should be an always on service capability. Whether you're delivering that internally or you're getting it from a service provider, it should be something that is continually evaluated, because change in your environment happens not just once a year or twice a year, it happens all the time. So making sure that any kind of change management process you have is tied into a compliance process, and that compliance process owns the accountability to the business to make sure that the business can stay compliant with those regulatory frameworks or just best practices, right, that they are built on. So one last slide for us, and I want to make this very, very simple. There's a lot of FUD in the market around managed services. You're outsourcing people's jobs. You're putting your outcomes in the hands of people that don't have the same perspective of your business as you do. Maybe they're not as invested in the outcome of your organization as your team would be if you built it yourself and delivered it yourself. I'm going to lose control. I'm going to have gaps and issues that are going to create complexity for the business. So really, we want to make this simple. There's only one reason that you should be considering partnering with a managed services provider, and that's to improve your overall business performance. All the services decisions you make, internal, external, outsource, co-source, people, process, technology, they should all be based with a singular objective in mind, and that is to improve your overall business performance. A couple of stats about us as a provider, just to leave you with here. We've been doing this for 35 years. We have a large client base, many client relationships that span decades. So we really look at these measures as quality measures of an MSP. So whether you're looking at Blue Mantis as a potential partner or any other service provider, these are areas you should ask them about. What's your Net Promoter Score? What's your retention rate? Are you actually able to reduce costs? And how effective are you in those areas? What's the ROI model associated with doing it through your services versus if I did it myself? So these are all really key components. I just want to open it up to Dave and Adam for any final thoughts before we wrap up.
Yeah, I'll jump in and say it's like a lot of, particularly the trends that you touched on, Jeff. I mean, a lot of it stripes across, the last one that you mentioned was GRC as a service. And what we're finding in deployment of and delivering that service is that, and cybersecurity really stripes across all of the different towers that's within our delivery support model. Again, critically important to our client experience.
Excellent. Dave, anything from you?
And I would just say, one thing for us as a partner, just to keep in mind is the flexibility that we bring. We know there's a lot of different areas within the IT stack and your IT requirements that you have to support. And our goal is to bring flexibility and trying to build that program again that can start at a phase one and then evolve as you grow. So we have that flexibility in all our managed services. So just something that I wanted to bring up. But outside of that, just thank everyone for their time today.
Great. Well, I appreciate both your time, and for people that may have questions, you might want to start a conversation around your specific situation, maybe things you're thinking about. Is this a good use case for me to consider managed services in general? I have our contact information up here. You can certainly reach out to any of us. If you're already a Blue Mantis customer, you can reach out to your account management team, and they can bring us into conversations to help you make those decisions and provide you that kind of strategy and kind of consultative discussion around where managed services may make sense for you. So thank you, everybody. I appreciate your time. We look forward to furthering the conversation with each and every one of you. Thank you.
Thank you all.